This is Steve Young from Gourmet Cheesecakes. This video is going to be how to break out a cheesecake from a spring form pan and slice it into 24 slices. I normally slice my cheesecakes into 16 slices. That's a pretty good dessert size. This is a slice that we call our sampler slice or sweet table slice. It's a very thin slice, and not all cheesecakes have the consistency that will allow you to do this. This is just a plain filling cheesecake. This actually works very well with chocolate also. It has to be a fairly substantial filling. Otherwise, the slices will just fall apart on you. So I'm going to break out my refrigerated cheesecake. Here we go. And I keep saying on my packaging videos that it is a 9-inch cake. I don't know why I say that. This is actually 8-inch. So 8-inch spring form, 8-inch base, 8-inch box. I slice my cheesecakes with a boning knife that is dipped in a pitcher of hot water. The hot water makes the knife very easy to clean off from slicing the cake, and it helps the knife actually go through the cake. So it is very thin area right here, makes it easier for you to clean the cheesecake off of the knife. Make your slices. That way you do not leave anything on top of your cake slices. Looks very nice and clean. My cakes have a sour cream topping on them, and sometimes that sour cream topping will stick to the spring form. So just as a safety precaution, to keep the sour cream topping from tearing away from the top of the cake, I go around and release the topping from the spring form by just giving myself a little, holding on a little edge of the knife and going around the cake. There we go. The cake is turning on very easily on the countertop because of the paper towels that I placed under it at the beginning. Put your knife back in your pitcher of water. The knife is going to be constantly going in and out of this pitcher of water. Be very careful that you do not knock over this pitcher on top of your customer's cake. Taking the spring form off, this is a steel spring form, and from my experience, it will not open up large enough to be taken off over the top of the cake. So I have to lift the cake up through the spring form, and the spring form will stay on my arm. I have aluminum spring forms that open up large enough that I can open it and take it off from the top of the cake. So open your spring form all the way. Give it a shake to release the cake from the spring. Move it to the edge of your work area. Don't drop it off the edge. Put your hand underneath it. Then lift up the spring and the base, lifting both, and then lifting the cake on the base up through the spring form. If it doesn't want to just come out, it's probably because there's a piece of the crust that is stuck to the spring form. That happens. Sometimes it happens so badly you have to go through with your knife and pushing down and releasing the cake crust from the spring form. Here we go. Comes off. We did lose a piece of the crust here. Move any crumbs out of the way. We can take care of that later, but set it back down on your paper towels. here's the piece of crust that we lost. That occasionally happens, more so on, in my experience, more so on steel springforms than on aluminum springforms. But I do not prep my pans in any way. I do not spray anything, any release agents, any coatings onto my pans. The cake usually comes out no problem. Okay. 24 slices. The way you normally slice these cakes is you just cut it in half and cut all the pieces in half until you end up with 16 slices. And that's fairly easy to do, just eyeballing it. On the 24 slice, you have to slice this to where you have 12 slices on each side on each half of the cake. So I will talk you through that as we go along here, because I do not use any kind of a guide to slice these. I just do it by eyeball. And I find it helps people out if you do the same thing on both sides of the cake. So you'll end up with a cut on this side and a cut on this side, and it allows you to line up the cuts with your knife blade a little easier. Take your knife out of the water, dry it off. I am going to turn the cake so that that piece of crust that came out, that's where I'm going to start my slices at. Eyeball the center of the cake, and you're going to cut you're going to cut it in half and then rotate it and cut the other half. So you just eyeball this. Pull down on the handle, put your thumb on the blade right near the crust to help you push down and crack through the crust. My mistake. It's still on the pan base. I need to get it off of the pan base and onto the cardboard base. Oops, I have not made that mistake before, ever, but I am treating you here to it because this is a video production. Of course something's going to go wrong. What you do in this case is you put your fingers next to the crust, extract the knife from the side, holding the base so you don't pull it off of the countertop. Put the blade back in the water. I did not crack through the crust, luckily, because I'm going to go under the crust, removing it from the base of the springform. These particular bases have a little lip on the edge of it. I have my aluminum pans are rimless, so I can just slice right across, releasing it from the base. On these, I actually have to go down with the knife under that lip and then go across. Releasing it from the base, leave the knife underneath it so that you can lift with the knife and slide your base under the cake. So here we go on that. Dry off your knife. Slide under and across. Leave the knife there. Take your base, slide it under the knife blade, under the cake as you're lifting a little bit. Pull your knife out, put it back in the water. Slide the cake up onto the base. Remove your base. I'm going to get rid of some of these crumbs. And I put that back down where the slice that I initially made is going to be facing right back at me again. I'm going to slice right down through the first cut I made and then crack through the crust. Dry off your knife. back into my original cut, and then crack down through the crust. Turn your cake. Dry off your knife. Eyeball, mating up with your first cut on the other side. With a little practice, this gets fairly easy to do. Crack through it. Rotate, and you can see here that we have cut the cake into 2 slices. Okay, now we're going to cut those 2 halves into halves. So we're going to quarter this cake. We're going to have 4 pieces, and then we'll work from there. So I will go ahead and do that without a whole lot of talk. Eyeball it. Rotate. Made up with your cut from the other side. We now have quartered the cake. Now it gets a little bit harder because I have to eyeball cutting these quarters into 3 pieces. So cut that into thirds, and you just do that by eyeballing the distance. What makes it harder when you first start is you don't have another cut on the other side to mate it up against. It's harder to keep yourself straight. All right, so each of these 4 pieces gets sliced into 3 pieces. Eyeballing it, and there. So we now have, doing this for the camera here, we now have 3 slices. Each of those slices is going to be cut in half. So we have 2, 4, 6. The other quarter, 2, 4, 6. So I have 12. 2 times 12, the other side of the cake. 2 times 12 is 24. That's how you get 24 slices out of this. So I'm going to cut my next one, my next quarter, into 3 slices. I am putting my hand against the edge of my work surface. It helps me to guide my knife across the slice. So I have a 2-point instead of a 1-point when I'm doing this. Got my thumb on top of it as a guide. Push down, crack through the crust. Have you ever seen those videos? Oh yeah, you cut a cheesecake with dental floss. Oh really? How do you crack down through the crust? They never seem to mention how that works. Are they doing a crustless cake? Once I've cut the other side of it, as I have, I actually, it's a little helpful because the existing cut on the other side helps to locate this cut that you're making as you go around it. in a while you have to push it back together. We are doing this in real time, so you'll get an idea of how long it actually takes to cut one of these in this many pieces. All right. Now we slice each one of these slices in half, and they'll end up being 24 slices. This particular cake is going to a ladies' Domino's party where they have other snacks also. So this is just going to be one of a few things. Therefore, they only need just a fairly small slice just to have a taste of it. When you slice them this narrowly, I do not recommend you try to top this cake, because the thinner you make these slices, the harder it is to plate out your product. If you covered this with cherries or blueberries or something, it would make that even harder. It would just fall apart in your hands. Going. I have not made very many videos using a cell phone. Always worried that it's going to shut off power right in the middle of the video and I won't even notice it. Being careful that you don't get your cake too far away from the edge of your work surface, or the tang, the hand protector on the bottom of your knife, can hit against the countertop and you won't make it all the way through your cake. So you have to make sure you're off the side a little bit when you're doing your slices. Almost done. Last slice. I'm very tempted to leave that last slice full size, because it'll make it easier to take that one piece out, and then you can plate out by then, just because you have space to work, you just start going across it and just unloading them onto plates from the side. But the customer said they wanted 24 slices, so 24 slices they get. All done. crumbs all over the place here. They tend to break off of the crust as you're slicing it. Rotate your cake to where you find, here it is, you find your little tab of tape that you put on at the beginning. Pull it towards the edge, don't drop it off the edge. Fold down your paper towel to get some of the crumbs out of the way. Lift up on the tab, lift up on the base, put your hand under the base, run your hand under the base, cleaning off some crumbs that may have gotten underneath it. Hang on, I'm going to rearrange my box over here. And lift it up, run your hand under the base, cleaning off crumbs. Now this will might be protruding a little bit over it expands as you cut it because of the space you're making in the crust. So you may have to push it together a little bit to actually get it inside the walls of your box. So there we go, 24 slices. Let me see if I can tip this a little bit without it sliding off of here so you can see how many slices that is, and they are very thin slices. Thank you very much for watching. This, by the way, is Christmas time, so Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to all of you out there. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.